Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fabric Espresso. Today we have Sowmya Sivaraman,
Hello, I'm Sowmya. I'm a product manager on the data warehouse team.
which means we have quite a cool topic, which is capacity, pause, and resume. Sowmya, can you tell us a bit more about this?
So today we'll talk about capacity pause and resume and specifically the impact on data warehouse operation and the associated user experience. And I'll first start off by talking about how this concept has evolved from dedicated SQL pool in Gen 2 to where we are in Fabric today. And in order to do that, I'm going to use a slide. In the past world, Gen 2 dedicated SQL pool users purchased individual SQL pools and they can specifically pause the pools. That's because the compute billing was associated with each pool based on the SLO or the performance level that was purchased. Now, let's shift gears to Fabric. In the SaaS world, the compute billing is based on the capacity SKU that is purchased. And within a capacity, I could be running multiple items like data engineering, data warehouse, and Power BI reports. So the pause control is at the capacity level. For example, here I am running 5 warehouses in one capacity, and pausing this capacity effectively pauses all the warehouses and any other items that are running on it. So, as we just saw on the slide, pausing the capacity is essentially like using the main power shutdown lever in your house. So, it's a very, very important control and one that needs to be thought through really well before using it. So, now with that context, let's see a quick demo and see how pausing a capacity impacts your data warehouse operations. Here we are in the Azure portal. This is the Fabric capacity that I have provisioned, and you can see that it's currently active. I have two warehouse tabs that are open to try two scenarios. Here, I'll start executing this long running query, and before it completes, I'll pause the capacity to see the end user impact. I also have another tab where I'll submit this query after I pause the capacity. Now let's go to the Azure portal. I'm going to pause this capacity that I've provisioned. It asks for a confirmation if I want to pause. I say yes. I can see a toast notification that the capacity pause is in progress. So now we can see that the capacity has paused. It's reflected by the status symbol here that says paused. Now let's go back to the query that I started running before pausing. As you can see, I get an error that says unable to execute the SQL request because the capacity is currently paused. And it provides more details. And there's also a learn more link at the bottom that will redirect users to a data warehouse specific pause resume page. Now let's go to the other tab. Right now, I'm going to submit a new query. Remember that the capacity is still paused. I'm going to click run, and within a few seconds, you can see the exact same error message that says the capacity is paused, so this request cannot be completed. Now, let me go back to the Azure portal. I'm going to resume the capacity. I have a confirmation dialog that says, are you sure you want to start? I say yes. And I get a toast notification immediately that says the capacity is starting. And within few seconds, you can see that the Fabric capacity has started and the status reflects as active. Now I will rerun the query now that the capacity has resumed. Click on run, and within few seconds, you can see the results and the query has executed successfully. Now let's go to the capacity metrics app to see how these events are reflected. For starters, Capacity Metrics app allows admins to monitor the performance of workloads and their usage compared to the purchased capacity. In one of the earlier videos, we talked about capacity smoothing. Since Smoothing spreads usage up to 24 hours into the future. When the capacity is paused, all future smooth usage will be reconciled and will show up as a spike in consumption in the utilization graph. So if I go to this consumption here in this graph, I can see this spike, and the time that it shows is 9:24 p.m. Let's go to the system events table. So we've added this new tab to simplify the viewing and the correlation of data to pause and resume events. And as you can see, 9:24 p.m. is when the capacity manually paused, and at 9:26 p.m., the capacity manually resumed. So to summarize, in this demo, we saw how to pause and resume a Fabric capacity via Azure portal. We saw the impact on in-flight queries when paused. We saw the impact to new queries after a pause. We also saw the user experience after the capacity resumes. And finally, we went to the Capacity Metrics app to see the pause events. As we just saw in the demo, any new requests that are submitted after the capacity is paused will get canceled. And if something was already in progress and an admin kicked off a pause workflow, that will also get canceled.
And how about the transactions open at the moment of when the pause was initiated?
Yeah. So if a query was executed with a begin transaction and a commit transaction block, those transactions will roll back. And it's very similar to how it happened in Gen 2 dedicated SQL pool as well.
So that probably applies to automatic maintenance operations like table compactions that are
Yeah,
happening in the background, right?
that's exactly right. So similar to user submitted requests, any background activity like metadata synchronization or any activity that we run to enable faster query execution, they will also get canceled. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a power shutdown button. So everything shuts down, and when the capacity resumes, these requests will start running again.
Great. So Fabric Warehouse uses cache to optimize query performance. So what happens when we do the pause?
Yeah. So when the capacity is paused, whereas compute resources are shut down, and for best performance, we need the caches to be kept warm all the time. So in those scenarios, it's not really recommended to pause the capacity. And when the capacity resumes, it restarts the warehouse compute resources with a clean cache. It's similar to restarting your computer. The first couple of minutes, things are booting up, things are slow. So, similarly, immediately after the capacity resumes, there could be a slight dip in perceived performance. So, ultimately, it's the capacity admin that has to make the trade off based on the scenario, whether performance and warm caches are more important, or is the cost savings more important before deciding to pause the capacity.
Thank you, Somya. And you explained that this pauses the capacity, meaning the compute. What happens to the one leg billing?
Yeah, no, great question. So, pause control is at the capacity level. It effectively pauses the compute billing meter of all Microsoft Fabric workloads, including warehouse, which means the storage billing meter is not paused or impacted by this action. It's always the compute that is paused. The storage is running.
I see. Great. Thank you very much, Somya. It was an awesome episode for me. I believe for our audience as well. So this time, Somya explained how pause and resume works in a Fabric warehouse. She explained that basically your compute is down, which means that the moment you initiate the pause, the moment the administrator initiate the pause operation, your queries that are currently running get canceled. Don't worry, your transactions get properly rolled back. Also, background operations get canceled, meaning if there was some automatic maintenance operation like table compaction, it will also be properly rolled back. So you don't need to worry about it. And this way you can save on costs, right?
Yep, exactly.
Great. Thank you very much, Soumya. Once again, as usual, this was Philip and Soumya.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, comments, or anything that you would like to hear about, please let us know in the comments. Bye.
Bye.